we didn't get into that, but he was echoing that in the background. Milo, right before the break, I mentioned a book I have coming out in August called Jezebel's War with America. And I kind
Yes.
of connect the dots and say, hey, look, she was a woman who lived in the past 3,000 years ago. Jesus references a woman, false prophetess in the New Testament called Jezebel, probably just the name he gives her. And I said, look, the
Mhm.
same demonic forces that operated through her are operating again today. Connect the dots from the rise of witchcraft to radical feminism to the
Mhm.
emasculating of men and maleness to the silencing of the prophetic voices and on and on. In ancient idolatry, baby killing was common, sacrificing a baby. You've got the militant abortion spirit, not a 15-year-old girl who's raped and is struggling and fearful, do I have an abortion or not? But we're talking about the shout your abortion, militant, celebrate
Yep.
this,
Yep.
pro-infanticide crowd, etc. So I
I'm
connect the
so
dots
glad
and
that
say, there's
yeah.
demonic junk going on. It's not just earthly and natural. You wanted to weigh in on that.
I'm so glad that you are writing that book because I have something similar, related. Perhaps they'll be quite complementary to one another. I'm currently assembling my thoughts on feminism, which does contain basically everything boils down to abortion. It all boils down to this great invention of Christianity in the Middle Ages of the individual worth of the human being, of equality before God, which leads us into equality before the law, of the idea that we are, beings created in God's image and we're all of unique moral worth. And understanding that and why it's therefore impossible to support abortion, it's impossible to support the death penalty as much as we might want it for some people. This is the basic, societal innovation of Christianity all throughout the West. And where they don't have Christianity, of course, women are still oppressed. Other people are thrown off roofs and people shoot each other over minor disagreements. It all boils down to this is why it all boils down to abortion. That's why abortion is the central and most important issue politically in the US, because it's the most important issue for humanity. It's the most important issue there is. Do human beings have intrinsic moral worth or not? And the left doesn't believe that they do. The left does not believe that people have intrinsic moral worth, mainly because so many of them, don't feel that way about themselves. This social justice warrior psychology, these damaged individuals with incredibly low self-esteem, who generalize from the particular and invent this entire political system based on their own, in some cases, quite justified self-loathing. So my next book's about feminism. The one after that is going to be about why women are so unhappy. And it focuses on witchcraft. You of course will know that 1.3, 1.4 million Americans now describe themselves as Wiccans. That's more than there are Presbyterians.
Exactly.
This is a sign of women who've given up on God, given up on the family, and given up on motherhood. Given up on the prospect of. I just saw a tweet today from a dreadful woman who writes, I think, for the Daily Beast. Her name is Taylor Lorenz. She's the one who was responsible for doxing Pamela Geller's children and putting them in the crosshairs of the jihadists. And she's tweeting today about, why don't shows like The Bachelor have women of over 30 or over 40 looking for love? And I'm like, the regret setting in, isn't it, pumpkin? These are women who have chosen to forswear, love, babies, a husband, marriage, the home, all of the things that make women happy. Instead, for this kind of nebulous, empty nothing of a media career in New York, guaranteeing that they're going to be miserable and that they're going to die, unfulfilled and unable to realize their potential. And so I'm seeing this happen everywhere. And the rise of witchcraft is really just a symbol of this. And it's women
it is
giving up God, the family, motherhood. I'm so glad you're writing this. I can't wait to read your book because I think yours is going to come out before mine does. So I'm sure I'll lean on it heavily.
I'll gladly send you the PDF. We'll get it to you because
what you're writing about is fundamental to the clash of ideologies between the left and the right in this country. And this is why abortion is about. This is why abortion is everything, because from that question, from that subject, spring all of the other critical questions about how we should treat one another, what the proper roles and what the proper extent of the state should be, how we should organize society, what our approach to waging war should be. Everything flows from that one central question. And when you give up, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I found it extraordinary that Mayor Pete. I use Mayor Pete because I always mispronounce his last name, which is also why I just use Milo in your case. But in any case, with Mayor Pete, remarkably, as he was attacking Mike Pence's Christianity and Donald Trump's Christianity. Okay, I understand how he could attack Donald Trump's Christianity and how Christian is he, et cetera, and is he a work in progress? But he refused to make a statement about late term abortion, but then pointed to one of his favorite verses in Scripture, Matthew 25, when Jesus talks about caring for the least of these, which he then applies to illegal immigrants. It's like, hang on, you have a heart for illegal immigrants, some of whom are criminals and shouldn't be here, and Mexico doesn't want either. You have a heart for them, but you won't even make a statement about late term abortion. And you have right now. I live in North Carolina. The governor of North Carolina refused to sign a bill that if a baby is born alive, that it gets medical care. Well, that's already on the book. Well, then sign it. So the culture of death that we have. When Mother Teresa years ago made the comment that when women kill their own children in the womb, how much lower can you get than that? When it's celebrated, it's a whole other issue. So yeah, the radical feminism, which then wants to make men into women and women into men, includes the war on gender, the seductive spirit of Jezebel. So pornography, which also destroys humanity and makes women just into sex objects and makes men degradable in their own eyes, on and on and on. These things are certainly interconnected. And where it goes the way of death. It doesn't reproduce. It doesn't bring life. It doesn't enhance another generation. And once again, a recent survey repeated the results of previous surveys that religious married women were the happiest of all with their sex lives. And in general, this has happened for decades. No surprise.
Always true. Also, of course, every survey that comes out shows that Republicans and Republicans or right-leaning people in general are massively better looking. They're much more physically attractive because they and this is not as frivolous or as flippant as it sounds. It's because those of us who have an appreciation, understanding for, reverence for institution, for religion, for the family, understand also the importance of beauty and truth and joy and these central Christian virtues that have made the West a nice place to live. And we have we know that there are objective beauty standards for men just like there are for women, and that they change a little over time, but not that dramatically. Sort of okay, yes, the ideal womanly shape has grown and shrunk, gently oscillated over time in the West, but it's never been Lena Dunham. And it's this loss of appreciation for beauty and truth and joy, these central Christian virtues that is part of the problem there, the uglification of the world. And that's what my feminism as cancer book is going to be about. Chesterton Chesterton in Orthodoxy says that suicide is the greatest kind of crime anyone can commit because it's not like killing one person; you're effectively killing the world. You're unmaking your entire world. It's like you're murdering the whole universe by killing yourself. I don't know if he's quite right about that. I think abortion might be a step further because you're killing a part of you that hasn't the wherewithal, the ability to fight back. It's a sort of self-abnegation of even worse kind because of the murdered potential. Of that life that is part of you. It seems to me that in the abstract, it's a nice theological point about suicide, about it being the greatest crime because you're sort of killing the world. But in real moral terms, actually, you are murdering your own potential and future.
Yeah, and you're making the choice and imposing the choice, and violently so, on someone that's innocent and expecting it should be the safest place in the world is the mother's womb.
Which is your own future. It is your own potential. It is your own legacy.
Yeah.
And people, I think, who have, phenomenally low self-esteem, who see no value in themselves, see perhaps no value in their own legacy, in their own future, in their own potential. And therefore, and also, of course, because there's this extraordinary strain of sociopathy on the left, I think, and it's a natural consequence of not having faith, not having respect for the family, and not having true proper love for other people, which can only come from the realization that other people are made in the image of God, have individual worth, right? If you don't believe that, I guess it's quite easy to just to fool yourself into the clump of cells thing and just say, yes, doctor, suck it out. Excuse the phrase, but that's what they're doing. Sell the parts off for scrap. This kind of sociopathic, like jaw-droppingly horrendous attitude to life is the natural consequence of not treating other human beings as people with intrinsic worth and value. And you can see that woman that I mentioned earlier, Taylor Lorenz, who's now kind of regretting her life choices, the ease with which, and even the glibness, and worse than that, the gloating after she'd outed Pamela Geller's daughters, said, "Oh, these women that are famous on Instagram, did you know their mother is, Islamophobic crazy Pamela Geller, trying to get these kids in trouble, trying to get them fired, trying in the most unspeakably awful way to drive a wedge between mother and daughters." And she must have done enough research to know that the kid's dad is dead, right? So she's been bringing Pamela's been bringing her children up alone. They are incredibly close and tight, but they have always been scrupulous about not identifying, one another in public to keep everybody safe. And the sort of gloating with which Taylor Lorenz is sort of like carving up families, bragging about having outed this because somebody has a slightly different ideological opinion about whatever. This is the mind of somebody who kills children, who stays unmarried, who suddenly wakes up one day at the age of 35 and says, "Oh my goodness, what have I done? What have I done with my life?" Well, you asked for this. You brought this on yourself. So I don't shed tears for people like that, although I believe that there's, of course, redemption available for everybody. I don't shed tears for her wasted life and opportunity, because she had every available chance to. She had every. I mean, this is a rich girl from Connecticut. She had every bit of data in front of her. She had all the resources possible to make the right choice, and she consistently, studiously, and deliberately made the wrong choice.
I got to jump in. I'm studiously, deliberately jumping in. We got a break. We'll be right back with MILO. Hey, Fritz, thanks for joining us today on a special edition.